Hi everybody, I'm Emily. I'm one of the designers at the Quilted Cow, and today I'm here to show you how to make these cute little Helpful Heifer Tinker bags. But first, before I get started with that, I want to thank our sponsors. We've got Husqvarna Viking Machines, Creative Grids. They make our rulers, our rotary cutters, and our mats. And then also the Wilmington Prints fabrics. They make these wonderful fabrics that we work with. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing you're going to do is gather up all of your supplies. And one thing that I do want to mention is that the Quilted Cow has kits for these available on our website or in the store. They are called the Tinker Bag. Each kit does come with all the fabric and then the little elastics that you need to be able to make 4 bags. And these bags are wonderful to carry things in them, like you can put some little candies in them for your favorite person. Fill them with candies and give them as gifts. You can also put earbuds in them, carry little things, whatever that you feel that you need to carry in them. Right now, I am holding on to some Wonder Clips in mine. But they are great. The little drawstring, it's elastic, and it does have a little button that draws that string nice and closed. So let's go ahead and get started with this. I am working with this Wilmington Prints fabric. It is called Blooming Blue. It's a beautiful line that we are going to start featuring in the store soon. So you'll need to check that out as well. Once you get your pieces cut, we're going to have a outer bag piece, an inner bag piece, and then also the little top. So there's the little elastic casing top here that we've cut out. So whenever we've got that, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take and we're going to fold a 1/2 inch on both of the short sides. We're going to fold in a 1/2 inch and a 1/2 inch again. We're going to press that in. And one of the things that I find very easy to work with in order to get that 1/2 inch and get it measured right is called a hot ruler. It's a little felt covered ruler that you can iron right over. I use this all the time whenever I make these tinker bags, and I have made quite a few sets, but all you're going to do is you're going to take your ruler, you're going to set it to where the 1/2 inch is going to fold over. You fold your fabric to the wrong side, that 1/2 inch. Get that put in my right hand so that I know what I'm doing. And then come in another 1/2 inch, put your ruler there. And like I said, this ruler is great because you can just iron right over the side of that. Try not to leave my hot iron on that wool for too long. So then we've got this perfectly folded 1/2 inch twice. We're going to do that for both of the sides. Once we've done that for both of the sides, then we're going to top stitch to secure this. And this is going to give us a nice crisp edge, and so we don't have any raw edges showing whenever we put our elastics through that casing. Bring it down, fold it in another 1/2 inch. And then I like to take it and just top stitch a 1/4 of an inch, or I'm sorry, not a 1/4, but an 1/8 of an inch, just to the inside of this line right here so that it holds both of those sides down. And I've already gone ahead and top stitched one of my casings for you to see. So once we've got that done, then we are going to fold this wrong sides together along the length of the casing. And we're going to iron that. Give it a decent press. And no, it never really holds down quite the way we want it to right there on that corner. All right, so now comes one of the easy parts. So I'm going to line this up on my mat so that I've got it lined up on the 1 inch marks here so I can find kind of the center of this whenever I'm doing this. So I want to center this casing. We're going to lay the outside of the bag right side up. Then we're going to center this casing with the raw edges And this makes it easy because you're going to be about 1 inch in on either side. We're just going to line up the raw edges just like that. And then we're going to lay the lining of the bag right side down, just right on top of that. And then I'm just going to give this a clip in about 2 or 3 places. So I'm going to make sure all of my raw edges are lined up there. I'm going to clip this here. Make sure all of my raw edges are lined up here. Give it a clip here, and then one in the middle just for good measure. Make sure that everything stays where it should. Then I'm going to take this over to the machine, and I am going to sew 1/4 inch all the way across, all through all of those layers right there. So give this a nice 1/4 inch stitch. Flip that off. And then we're going to take this back over to the iron, and we're going to iron this open so that the casing is flat on top. So I just like to open up one side and then flip it over. And this is such a small bag, but I do like to get kind of precise with my outside edges so that whenever I iron those, I have it to where it's right on top of that fold right there. And then I'm going to take this to the sewing machine. I'm going to top stitch all the way down 1/8 inch from this edge, which I've already done with this piece right here. So once you've got it sewn with that 1/8 inch all the way down, you're going to go ahead and we're going to thread our elastic through this, through the casing. So we do want to thread the elastic through the casing first. And the reason for that is because it is very difficult to thread the elastic through the casing after we have folded it in half and sewn it together. So your elastic piece is going to come with a little button already attached to the elastic. And I like to go ahead and take that button off. So I just slip it off through over the fold there. I like to take that button off because I like for my elastic to thread through, and then whenever I get finished, I tie it off on the end to hold that elastic in place. Some people will have a tendency to thread it through and with the button still on it. I haven't really figured out a really good way to do that. So I'm going to take a teal thingy, just put the elastic through the opening of that and lead that through my casing. And if you forget to thread your elastic at this point, it's okay. Don't panic. You still can thread it through the other way. It just takes a little bit more work than what I just did right there, because it just goes straight in and you're good to go with that. Once you've got that, I do like to try to make sure that my elastic is kind of flat. You're going to fold this right sides together and I like to give it a little clip right here just to hold it in place while I mess with the elastic a little bit, because we want to make sure that this elastic stays out of the way. In order to do that, I just fold the elastic back, fold the tails of the elastic back, and give it a little clip right here. You can pin it or clip it, whichever way you want to do it. And then you're going to sew 1/4 inch all the way down and all the way across the bottom. Once you've got that sewn, then it's on to one little extra step that is not on the pattern. I have done that already. I've sewn the 1/4 inch all the way down and all the way across the bottom. Whenever I make these bags, find the empty one, I don't like to have the raw edges exposed on the inside because they get kind of raggedy. And we don't like to have raggedy raw edges that fray a lot. And then whenever you're pulling out whatever's in there, you're pulling out raw edges. So I do a little extra step. Like I said, this is not in your pattern. So a little extra tip for you is I go ahead and I zigzag all the way down and all the way across before I box my corners. And I like to start it in a little bit and then back stitch to the end. That's the same thing that I do with this 1/4 inch stitch. I start here and then I back stitch and come back down so that my threads aren't hanging off the end as well, because these edges are going to be exposed a little bit once you've made your bag. So I go ahead and I get started, and then I back stitch back up to the top, work my way all the way down. Now it doesn't really matter on this bottom corner where you end. The reason for that is because we're gonna box that, and so we're actually gonna be cutting off that corner just a little bit. So you do just wanna make sure that you catch that edge. So you can kind of see, and the edges have gotten a little bit raggedy, and that's okay. But you can kind of see how that is going to keep everything from fraying, all of your edges from fraying in the future. So once I get finished with this bag, I do take a few extra moments and just trim off those extra little threads, just use my scissors, get rid of those, and that makes things a lot easier. So the next thing from the pattern, we're back to the pattern now. I'm going to go ahead and finger press this little edge just so I have a nice little line, and we're going to box the corner. So if you've never boxed a corner, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it so that this bag sits and has a little bottom to it, a little flat bottom to it. So if you've never boxed a corner, it's super easy. You're just going to open up from the inside and take that line that I finger pressed there. So I've got a little reference line, and I want to line that up with my bottom seam line. So you open up to make a triangle here, and that little finger press line is lined up with that bottom seam line. And then I'm going to grab my Creative Grids ruler and go ahead and I'm going to box it with a 1/2 inch. So I like to use one of these lines to line up with my seams, and then let me see here. So one of these lines is lining up, and then my 1/2 inch is right here. It's going to be right on that point right there to line that up. This is just a friction marking pin, but I'm just going to draw a line all the way across that right there. And then I do want to clip this. So I'm just going to grab a clip real quick. And if you had a bigger box corner, I would suggest clipping back here. But since it's such a small box corner, I just want to hold that in place, make sure that I don't lose that spot. So the next thing I do, and one of the things that'll make this a little bit easier, is if you take and you just clip that corner up to where the 1/4 inch seam line is. And this makes it easier because now you can lay one seam going one way and one seam going the other way. So you're going to line up your seams. So here's one seam here, and just directly underneath of it is the other seam. And I'm just kind of squishing those seams together with my fingers, making sure that they line up really nice. And then I'm going to take my Creative Grids ruler again and line up my mark here, my 1/2 inch, or my little mark there. And I'm going to bring it up till I'm at a 1/2 inch here. And I'm going to draw my line just right across there, just like that. Grab another clip and make sure that I close the lid on this friction pin because it does dry out. You don't want that to happen. Once I've got that, now I'm going to go back over to my sewing machine. I'm going to sew directly on that line. Get it under here, get rid of the clip, get that out of the way. Like I said, if it was a bigger seam, it wouldn't be a big deal if I had the clip still on it. And make sure that I switch back over to a straight stitch again. Don't forget that step. You want to do a straight stitch across that line. And so across, and I go ahead and back stitch at the beginning and end. I always back stitch on my box corners. And clip that. And go ahead and do the other one. Once again, back stitching at the beginning and end. Even though this is such a small bag that you're not going to be putting a whole lot of strain on it, it's good to get into the habit of back stitching at the beginning and end of your box corners because it just reinforces that in just a little bit. Okay. So once we've got that, now we're going to cut a 1/4 inch. Now you can either use scissors or you can measure this. If you're not used to what your 1/4 inch is, if you're kind of new to the whole 1/4 inch seam, then go ahead and use your ruler and your rotary cutter. And let me get that turned the right way, out of the way. And then I'm going to put the 1/4 inch line of the ruler directly on that seam line that I just sewed. And then I'm basically just cutting off the barest little bit right there. So it's not a whole lot that I'm getting rid of. And then the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead once again and zigzag stitch. This is once again not in your pattern. This is just that little extra that I do so I don't have raggedy edges whenever I don't have those raw edges and everything whenever I have my bag finished. So I'm going to switch back over to the zigzag stitch. Make sure I've still got it about the same measurements there. And I go ahead and backstitch a couple of times over this just because it's such a small seam that as I'm going, it's nice to have a couple of layers of zigzag stitch over that. And that side. And I'm not really worried about all those extra threads because like I said, I do come back and I go ahead and trim off all of those raw edges, all the extra stray threads that have been made as I sew along. All right. So now I take just a few moments and clip any extras that I don't want to see anymore. Make a little pile on my cutting mat with those extra threads. And it does take just a few moments, but it makes for a really nicely finished bag whenever you get finished with it. And you can get as particular about it as you want, as not so particular about it as you want. But like I said, I'm just clipping off some of those extra threads as I go along, the ones that I've made as I did my zigzag stitch. So now, hopefully, you have very, very minimal stray threads or raw edges that ravel on you as you work with the bag, whoever you give it to, as they work with the bag. So let's go ahead and turn this right side out. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to thread that bead back on. Now, I have not found an easy way to thread the bead back on whenever I finish with this bag, except for one way. Before I get to that, I am going to poke my corners out a little bit with that teal thingy. It does make a good little poker tool. And let me grab my little bead threader cheater tool, which is basically a piece of thread that is long enough that I can double it up and thread this kind of like you might use like a needle threader. So I've doubled up the thread. I found that doubling up this thread works a lot better than not doubling it. And if you notice on the bead, there's a smaller end and a wider end. And I just fold this little loop as small as it can go and thread it down through that smaller end. This is probably super difficult to see on camera. And then take this, go ahead and pull this so that I have plenty of ends. Give it a little clip here to hold that. And those wonder clips, they are super handy. Act as like third hand for you. All right, so I've put the elastic up through that thread and then I hang on to the bead, wrap my finger around the thread a time or two and just pull that through, and that pulls that elastic through that bead a lot easier. I have tried using a poker tool and for some reason it just will poke holes into that elastic and it will not allow that elastic to be poked through that bead very easily. So last thing I do is tie this in a knot. And this is one of my favorite little bags to do because they are so quick and easy. Your kit, it provides all the fabric that you need to make 4 of these bags, all the elastic and beads that you need to make 4 of these bags, and look how fast that goes together. So that is the Helpful Heifer Tinker Bag. Kits are available on our website or in our store, so go check them out. Make sure that you like and subscribe to these videos so that you can keep getting new content every time we post videos. And thank you so much for watching.
Okay, you wicked cool quilters, good job. You made it to the end. We would like to thank our sponsors, Husqvarna Viking Sewing Machines, Creative Grids, rulers, rotary cutters, and mats, and Wilmington Prints for the beautiful fabrics. Thanks for watching!